Hey, beautiful souls and creative minds. Welcome to the Artist Stoop, the podcast where we turn the art world into your personal playground. I'm Jillian Zepeda, your host, and I can't wait to dive into the art world with you. Each episode will be kicking it with an incredible artist, unraveling their stories and turning the spotlight on the magic that happens beyond the brush. Get ready to discover new perspectives, forge connections, and immerse yourself one captivating conversation at a time. So grab your favorite beverage, maybe a sketchbook, and let's jump into the kaleidoscope of creativity together. This is the Artist Stoop, where art isn't just a thing you see, it's an experience you feel. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Artist Stoop. Today, I am excited to introduce Jade Denberg, also known as Jadeisms, a captivating artist who gracefully blends abstraction and landscapes. Inspired by her Nova Scotia childhood, her art reflects the sands of transformation, playfulness, and freedom. Through her mastery of color, gradients, and geometric compositions, Jade's paintings become sanctuaries of peace, resonating with the vibrations of existence, influenced by the luminaries like Hilma of Klett, us to embrace tranquility and connectivity in a chaotic world. So welcome to the podcast, Jade.
Thank you, Jillian. It's nice to meet you, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so excited to have you on. Now you are, I always like to start with how I know the artist, and you are one of those artists that I do not know. I found your work just by scrolling Instagram, and your work popped up, and I thought it was really intriguing. And it's one of those works that I'm drawn to because it's not something that, because my work is so different. I'm always drawn to artists' work who's completely different than mine, and I love what you're trying to represent and your stories, and I just love your work. So that's why I was like, I want to talk to her.
Yeah, and I also was just looking up your work. And so I feel like this is great because we're starting from scratch in our conversation and we're learning about each other. So, and I also feel like our work is different, but also quite similar in the sense that there is some abstraction and there's a lot of emotion at play with your work because I can see your brushstrokes and your figurative sort of gestural work that you do.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to paint. I mean, do you enjoy painting?
Yeah, painting is my life. It's not a profession, it's actually an obsession. So without it, I wouldn't be able to be who I am or achieve the level of happiness that I do with it.
Yeah, right. There's just something about it that's so freeing. And that's what someone asked me one time. They're like, "Well, how long have you been an artist?" And I'm like, "Well, pretty much my whole life." And they're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
okay." And I say, "I wouldn't be who I am if I wasn't painting. Like, I am a much better person because of my paintings."
You know, some of the best artists that I mean in this world are people where art happens to be their like painting happens to be a medium, but art happens to be a way of life.
Hmm.
And some of the best artists that I've met and been able to speak to, kind of they art is a very poetic way of touching their emotions and expressing who they are. And the best artists are those who really have no line between work and life. They kind of merge together.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. 100%. Do you find that for yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. And I'm so grateful because, I sit around the table with friends all the time, different types of friends who work these different professions. And being an artist is a very different conversation than how a lot of people approach their work. And people ask, if there's anything else you would do, what would that be? And I'm like, there's just nothing else. And I feel very grateful to feel that way because we only live one life. And it's so important to be passionate about your work because everything else just follows it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting that you do when you get to those your friend groups. I don't know how many friends you have. I have a few close friends that I can call on, um that are also artists that I know I can always count on. But I always found that like in groups of people who like me being the only artist, sometimes I find it hard to blend in because you're like, I don't, at least I'm awkward in society. I don't know if it's just like trying to blend in and like just have everyday conversations when you look at the world kind of completely differently in some aspects. Do you find that?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like there definitely is some overlap. But as far as like the creative banter of what it's like to be an artist, that is very unique. And I feel like unless I'm in a conversation with another artist, I can't really go that deep because
Yes.
people don't understand it. And so I really appreciate my artist friends because I have them as well. And I also have friends of all different industries and um, yeah, many, many different industries. And so it's really interesting just to learn about all of them.
Mm-hmm. For
Yeah.
sure. So you go by Jadeism. Your name is Jade, but you go by
Yes.
Jadeism. That's what your Instagram is. Can you tell us where that came from? What does that embody? What is its
Mm,
significance?
yeah. So my Canadian mother named me Jade after being inspired by the beautiful stone and my Chinese heritage. So I'm half Chinese.
Okay.
And growing up, Jade was a very unique name because I hadn't met my first Jade until the age, I think, 22. I was 22 years old, and it was a guy. And that was the first time I'd ever met another Jade. So growing up, I could never find my name on a name
Mm,
tag anywhere.
yeah.
And because my name is so simple, people used to say my name, my nicknames were my name plus something extra. So for example, like Jada, Jada Kiss, Jadalicious, J'adore. And so so what I so when I reemerged my artist career, it was really important to create a name for myself that was open-ended, just like my work, the nature of my work. And so I came up with Jadeisms so that I could leave my work open to interpretation and create something that was ever evolving.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
I like that. I have another artist. She also has like a pen name, a pseudonym that she goes by for her art, and I interviewed her a couple weeks
that's her
ago.
name.
Kesley.
Kesley. Does it relate to her own name or is it something
No,
separate?
it was a alter ego alias nickname that
Yeah,
she gave herself when she was a child.
I love that. So
Yeah,
she is her
it's
alter
her,
ego.
yeah, it's like her alter, and it's like it exudes confidence, and
Yeah,
so it's like her
yeah.
artist persona, and I just thought that that's really cool having that, being able to, it's almost like a shield. It's like a protective shield, almost like, okay, here's who I am to present to the world, like the bestest version of myself.
Musicians do that often, I feel. Like what was Beyonce's? Do you remember?
Sasha Fierce.
Sasha Fierce. Yeah, I mean, what a name.
Hmm.
I mean, like, I feel like I read an article how she's pretty shy as a person and introverted, and like to have this alter ego like Sasha Fierce, which is a very powerful word,
Hmm.
that she sort of came out of her shell when she was on stage because she just, yeah, became this new person. So I love that. And I
Yeah.
actually think more artists should do that.
Yeah. So are you introverted or extroverted?
That is a great question. I am more naturally I'm more introverted, but I love to be around people.
Hmm.
I have a rule that if I'm socializing for a few hours, I need a few hours of downtime. So there's always that balance between the two because
Yeah.
it takes a lot of my energy. Because I think most artists are pretty sensitive people to the outside world.
Yes. I think
Yeah.
that's a really good way to put it because it's just like it's very taxing, excuse me, on us because it's just like I'm an introvert. I am a homebody, but I do like to be around people. So if I'm around like the right niche of people, I am extremely extroverted, but then I'm like I'm drained. I do need to go home. And then if I'm in a large crowd of people that I don't know, I kind of just sink back into the crowd.
Same. Same.
I'm like, I am invisible. I am
That's the
not
same.
here.
Same. I do the same. So I hear you on that. And yeah, it's very actually, it's funny is I admire extroverts. My husband is one, opposites attract. He has to be around people all day, every day. And if he's not, he actually gets a little depressed.
Mhm.
And I do find those people that are extroverted, they're sort of the life of the party. And you
Mhm.
kind of see people like, oh my God, I wonder what it's like to be that person. And it's
Mhm.
admirable as
Yeah,
someone who is not like that.
exactly. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. But let's dive in a little bit more into your work. So,
Yeah.
your work, you say your work serves as contemporary meditations. What do you mean by that? Because your work is very
Yeah.
calming to look at.
Okay, so contemporary meditations. I have to give credit to one of my collectors who is, so this particular collector, she's an incredible artist and she is also a curator and
Oh.
she is great with her words. And we sat down with the work and she brought up the concept of it reminding her of a contemporary meditation. And it's when she said that it really struck a chord with me and I kept that for myself. So
Yeah.
that's where it started. Um, and the reason why we came up with that expression is because it's really about the process of the work.
Mhm.
And the process is really about understanding people, whether it be myself or others. And so I've dove pretty deeply into the journeys of people, whether it be their physical and their mental journey, so where they are in life and where they aspire to be. I've gathered, I've been able to talk to some pretty incredible individuals and hear stories about resilience, about triumph over adversity, as well as just really unique perspectives from very smart people who run businesses and are doing some things in life that are, I guess, out of a normal person's comfort zone.
Mhm.
um, and so, because of these stories, it's really inspired me to be creative and to create these works because it's about diving into the depth of human experience and channeling ways of making it more memorable.
Okay.
If that makes sense. And yeah, so that said, the paintings have become um, they became sort of visual expressions of modern meditations that as the viewer, you're invited to sort of look at the work and go into and connect and go into your own inner world.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's really cool because they are really peaceful. Like they, it, I'm trying to like, what's the best way to describe it? So, for people who are listening, the best way I can try it. So she has almost like this. there's some solid colors with some gradient on it, but then there's like these not abstract. There's very structured forms. Very structured forms that have a balance on the canvas. So that's where like this meditation, this calmness comes from it. Is that a good way of interpreting that?
Yeah, they're almost like channels.
Yes.
They're almost like channels. And so talking about where we are and what we aspire to be or to become, um, that is sort of that is what way that is a word that I've used to describe the work is these channels of aspiration. And so those channels really come from the stories and the people that I talk to. And a lot of times the forms are connected from the top and the bottom. So there is a grounding, and there's also this. Okay. So one sec. Let me show you Benny. By the way, this is Benny.
Aw, Benny. He's cute. He's a little weenie dog.
He's a little wiener.
I have a corgi blue heeler. He's actually laying behind me on his little.
Well, I love dogs. They're the best. This little guy was a street dog in California, and we brought him all the way to Austin. So he's living the good life.
Our dogs, they have it better than us.
Yeah, they have it pretty
sleep
good.
in beds, cozy blankets, lots of food.
Exactly. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So channels. I kind of look at the work like channels. There's always forms that touch the very top and the very bottom. So there's sort of this there's this grounding to the work, and these forms, there's a lot of geometry, there's triangles, circles, and I don't know if you've seen sort of the earlier works with the people.
I did
Yeah.
I did see them.
So I've taken that concept and just made it a little more abstract, and so it really is talking about people and going into their human psyche.
Yeah, no, when I
Yeah.
was on your website, I did a deep dive into your work. I am actually obsessed with those paintings with the people in them. They have also like this surrealism feel to it.
Yeah. Gotta love surrealism for sure.
And just the way that the people are, and then the shapes of the geometric shapes above them, and how but then the people, like there was the one where the woman, like her face was like in 3 different layers. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
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 Her face was there, but then she had like 3 different layers of her face, and it was on the side. That one just like blew my mind. I was like, that is amazing.
I'm glad you like that. I mean, those pieces, they hold such a special place in my heart because that is where I started, and that is sort of how the work has evolved into where it is today. And I took what would be something more literal. So because I used a lot, I grew up painting with oils, and I did a lot of realism. I actually uh, used to get hired. I don't do this anymore, but I used to get hired to do full portraits for people, realistic portraits. And it's so different than the work that I show publicly.
Yeah.
I'll share with you one time what they look like. And so like I have this technical practice of painting realism with oils. And in art school, they always taught us that oils was the only way to paint. You know, acrylics were kind of like elementary and all these things. And so when I first started, I was using oils, and then I sort of wanted to be less literal on the spectrum of painting. And so yeah, but like with those particular paintings, I loved those paintings because the line work, as you notice, some are thick and some are thin. You have some lines that are black and blue and green and pink, and the lines sort of create this tapestry of storytelling, of like kind of diving into the emotion and the thoughts of the people that I painted. And so, yeah, it just takes it more into, it kind of merges like the reality and the abstraction of the work together, versus going full abstraction. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you enjoyed those.
Yeah, and I think I was just having a conversation with someone else about this. Like a lot of us who do end up painting something that is not so literal abstract form, whether it's like yours or mine or whatever, we all know how to paint something realistically. We all know how to draw. We all know how to paint. We are choosing to turn that into an abstraction instead of painting it as it is.
Yeah, I mean, look at all of the biggest artists, the Picassos, the Pollocks, like they are very they're technically trained artists that
Hmm.
can paint very, very well.
Hmm.
And they chose to go in the form of abstraction. And as you see in their art careers, the older they get, the more abstracted they become.
Hmm.
And I think it's a natural progression as an artist to go there because the art, the meaning behind it becomes a lot deeper. And it's less about what you see on the surface. It's all about going as deep as you can to the point where you're and I think every artist suffers from this. You get to a point where you're looking at the work and you're like, where did it come from?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you are trying to unravel it again. And it's this constant, almost therapeutic process of going on these deep layers, understanding them, and then you just keep unraveling. And it's a really beautiful process
Hmm.
when you get there as an artist.
It really is. It's really fun to deep dive and to find those connections, and then you realize like sometimes like there's something like deep within your psyche that like you sometimes almost didn't know that you needed to pull out, you know?
Yes, exactly. And I don't know if you're the same as well, but like sometimes I do things and I go back to the art that I was doing 20 years ago.
Mhm.
And I was like, what is this? Why do I keep going back to this place? I do find that it is like in order to create an incredible work, it really has to be a blend between sort of the flow and the movement of the body,
Mhm.
which is mostly for me, it's my hands because that's what I'm using. And then it has to do with where you are emotionally as well as uh, where how you're experiencing the world at the time. And
Mhm.
so like when all those things connect, you have this synergistic blend of emotion, intuition, experience, and it kind of creates these paintings or art that I feel like um, really becomes authentic to the artist. And especially for me, like that's when I do feel like the things I create are the things that are most authentic to me. I don't have to think about it. It's just a natural form of expression.
Yeah. And very intuitive.
Very intuitive, but also it's like I said, the heart and the mind and the body play a massive role in the creation as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, so you have a young daughter, she's 2, and I
Mhm.
have, excuse me, sir, I have a 9-month-old son. Did you find that you created differently postpartum?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There is something that changes in a woman's body the moment that they become pregnant. And especially after giving birth, it's this whole experience that is unforgettable. I mean, it is on a level of 10, it's an 11 of like of feeling those emotions as well as the physical feeling of giving birth. It's pretty intense. I had a natural birth, and so I felt every moment. And so, also the quality of just motherhood and taking care of this little baby it really brings out your own childhood, and it brings out all of these emotions and traumas that you might have forgot that you had.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do feel like I became a different person for all of those reasons. And the one thing also that I noticed after becoming a mother is my level of sensitivity as well as my nervous system changed because I was caring for something so precious. The amount of things that I noticed around me were tenfold.
Yeah, like you're hypersensitive to everything.
Everything. And I think that's a safety mechanism in our body.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the dads get it as much as the moms.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Like I've noticed that like I paint differently. It's actually really funny that you just mentioned that like all these the memories, things of childhood, because like I I'm doing a collection right now. I'm working on a couple collections, but for some reason, I am now diving into this collection that has me reminiscing about my relationship with my grandfather from like
Mhm.
childhood all the way like to adulthood. And it just kind of came out of nowhere. But I found that since I've become a mother for some reason, I don't know if it's like now that I have all this, the time to be able to sit and think also and like feeding and nighttime feedings, cuddles, whatever, but all of this find that I'm more creative, like I have more ideas flowing.
Mhm. That's really, really beautiful. It sounded like it almost created a catalyst for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also creating a new series of work, and this series of work really it was inspired by the questions I had for myself are how do I show up as a mother?
Hmm.
How do I show up as a partner? And how do I show up for myself?
Ooh, those are big questions.
Those are really big questions. And I had one word that came to me. And that one word led into this whole visual interpretation. And so I have a new collection called We're Meant to Blossom. And the whole series of works actually starts from the center of the painting
Mhm.
and expands outward, almost like a mandala or a
Yeah.
radial symmetry versus um, symmetry side by side is all radial. So it's a different approach to the work than my past stuff, and that's from motherhood.
Yeah. So funny that you mentioned that because another collection that I like was inspired. Like I had an idea for it a couple years ago, but like it wasn't until I became a mother that it finally like clicked. And it was this idea that once, because I always, because I always usually paint the figure, like the woman's body or couples, depending on what the thing. But I had this idea that for this woman's body to get hidden inside of a flower, and like our body, the abstract points of our body to be blooming, to be blossoming. And it wasn't until I became pregnant and I said, that's what it is. It's just like we as women, once we've become a mother, we've blossomed ourselves. I had that same exact thing, but it's just like I'm doing where we're gonna be hiding
Mhm.
inside this flower because much like Mother Earth is guiding us as we continue to grow into this new being.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, there's a lot of synergies between both your work and mine,
Yeah.
and it really, I think, shows the power of becoming a mother of and how it affects us and the way we think, but also I think it's funny the blossoming of something nature and it's a bit of a spiritual experience as well. You end up connecting the dots with not just yourself but the things around you, and
Yeah.
like mother nature is an example of something that is so powerful and for whatever reason, motherhood is connected to Mother Nature. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know why, but it really, there is a connection there and it's really strong.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So talking about collections, so do you usually paint in collections or do you do one-offs?
Yeah, I do both. So I do a collection once a year, which I love doing a collection because it forces you to create a series of work that relate to each other, which is, I think, very, very important to evolving the work.
Mm-hmm.
Last year I did a collection of 20 pieces, which is large, and this year I'm doing something a little smaller. I'm doing 12 pieces. And I also do one-offs, which are commissions. I do seasonal artwork as well, which is something that is new that I've started. Um, and that's only because I feel like it's important to stay relevant, especially with social media. It's especially with social media, and then there's murals, right? And the murals are really taxing on the body, so I do a few a year. And for me, murals is really about, placement and doing art with friends, because for murals I work with like up to 15 people at a time. So and they're normally pretty large, and they're also very challenging because every mural is so different from each other because of the surface, because of
The
things
elements.
like elements, graffiti, and things like that. You're
You're
like, what do I do?
outside.
It's very different, yeah.
You're using
And
also a
so,
different type of paint too.
yeah, you're using a different type of paint. But the collection work, yeah, that's I'm hoping to do a show in June here in Austin. And so, there's more details about that if you're in the
Yeah.
area. I'd love for
Yeah.
you to come.
Yeah.
And yeah, as far as the commissions, it's because my work involves utilizing people's stories. These commissions are very much like collaborations with whoever
Mm-hmm.
is commissioning it. So I talk to them individually and I get their story, and I actually create works for them that act as their own channel and their own meditation. So it's very custom to them. And I love collaborating with people because it gives me the opportunity to, to work with these people and commissions. And I love doing them because some of the people who've commissioned me in the past to do work, they've really become like some of my close friends. So it gives me an excuse to make friends as an introverted person. So
Isn't that funny? Because I've done a couple commissions too, and I get very involved with the people because I ask for photo references of them specifically to paint from. And so, and then and that's the other thing, like wanting to, because I've done interior design in the past and like trying to, um, when you are having art in your home or when you're doing commissions, I think like one of the things I always tell people that, you really need to look inside yourself and figure out what your quirks and your personality are so that you can bring those elements that you hold so near and dear to you to bring it in your art in your home, because it brings it in a unique way that maybe you don't get to show the rest of the world unless like maybe you show it with your fashion or just other little things. But I think art is one of those really personal things that you get to almost try and find those weird quirks of yourself in a painting.
I'm curious, how do they respond to it? Do they get nervous? Are they
A little bit of
excited?
both, I think. Yeah, especially like the
Yeah.
people who like aren't creative necessarily, when because you start
Yeah.
asking like really personal questions, like because at the end of the day, the art needs to do something for them. Yeah, it can be a pretty painting, it can hang on the wall, like you can feel like, oh, it brings me, peace or calm, whatever, which is a great thing to feel. But when you can connect to it on a deeper level and know that it means something more, that's when it's just like it actually does something for them.
I agree. Yeah. And like I feel like they also know that they've had a part in the
Mm-hmm.
process. And so they feel much more tied to it personally because of that reason. And yeah, it's a really beautiful experience. So not every artist approaches work that way though. I see commissions, like the process of it is like very like basic, which is like, okay, you like this painting, send me your color palette. I'm gonna recreate the same painting, but in the colors that match your decor, which is fine because it looks beautiful in your home, but the meaning of it is much
Mm-hmm.
less
I think there's
significant.
obviously like there's a place for both, obviously, because as we see today in our world, like there's the commercialization, it's a big word, of art, and then there's like art.
That's a big
Then
word,
there's the
excuse me.
art that has, you know, that does have that deeper meaning, and there obviously is. It just takes the right person who's willing and open to wanting to go deeper, to have those touch points.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think it also has to go back to like the homeowner, the collector, when they're purchasing art. It also, you know, sometimes showcases just how deep they are in themselves, and what is it just supposed to be a pretty picture on the wall, or do I want it, am I looking for things that are more unique that I can actually tell a story with? You know, there's just those different
Mm-hmm.
levels.
I agree. I love breaking the mold with a first time buyer and like go through the process with them. And they're like, wow, like this is so cool to have a work that means so much to me in my house. Because once you do that, they never go back to the
Yeah.
commercial route. They start to realize that like these paintings are there hopefully for decades, if not centuries, something you could pass on to your next of
Mm-hmm.
kin, your son, my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's yeah, each painting really becomes a story in the home. And those are my favorite homes to be
Mm-hmm.
in because you know, I feel like even collectors, the more that they collect, the more obscure their art choices become. And it's cool to see the weirdness
Yeah.
come out.
I do you have your own art
Yeah,
collection?
I do. And most of my art collection is from artists where we've worked together, we've traded and stuff like that. So I love doing trades with other artists because for me, we have a lot of people come through our home. And so oftentimes people are asking who did
Oh,
this? Who
that's
did
cool.
this? And yeah, and so it's just supporting other artists as well, which is I think so important to have other artists work
Yeah.
in your own
To
home.
100%. I found that when because I did, I've done the other art fair a couple times, and every time that I've gone, I always end up buying a piece of work from either someone who like was my booth mate, like someone from across the aisle from me, or something that I connected to. Like
Yeah.
I hung out with you for 4 days, and I've really like been staring at your work. I'm really, so I have a couple pieces from people like that, and then some artist friends that I grew up with. And I remember my first original piece of art. I actually have it right here. My first original piece of art that I bought is actually a landscape, which is totally not me, but I bought it because I was drawn to the colors. I was drawn to the colors in
Yeah.
it, and and I'll just I'll put it in the show notes, people. But it's just like it's this.
Oh,
It's so nice.
so
It's so
nice.
pretty,
Yeah.
and it was at this where I grew up in this small town. In this, it was a restaurant and an art gallery all in one. And I used to be a waitress there, and every day I'd come in and I'd see it, and then I finally like I had enough tips or something, and I'm like I kept staring at it. I was like I need to buy it. I need to buy that painting. So that was my first original piece of art that I purchased.
That's awesome. I have a piece of art in my dining room, and it's from a New York artist. His name is Ross Pino, And he has like a street art quality to his work, which is so different than mine. That's why I love having it around, because it sort of breaks up this like very peaceful calmness of all the work in my house. And I remember how I think I connected with him
Mm-hmm.
over Instagram. And we're like, we love each other's work, and we're like, let's paint something for each other. And so we ended up like coming up with these words, and we talked about why these words were so meaningful to us. And we painted, and we met in New York. We painted these paintings for each other, and I have one of them in my house. And so like that's also something I love to do, is work with artists to like create
That's
something for
so
each
cool.
other. And that way it's also part of the story, and it's meaningful because he put rainbows on my painting. He used the colors that were, most meaningful to me. So yeah, and it's a good way to get to know other artists and their process, which I love. And I feel like artists, we need to work with other artists more in
Yeah,
collaboration.
so
Just so
important. I always say
important.
collaboration over competition
Yeah.
every day. Because
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, musicians do it all day, every day. Artists, we still
yeah,
have a lot to learn.
yes, we do, and for sure. So I want to touch base something that you mentioned before, because I followed you and I followed your Instagram story on it. Let's talk about the mural. Let's talk about what happened with the
Oh
mural.
yeah.
You painted a mural in Austin. Just catch everyone up. You painted a mural in Austin. It's been there for a while, and then someone tagged it with some graffiti.
Yeah, which happens. It's sort of part of the process, but I have a really funny story about that mural. So I'll start with how the mural began. When I first moved to Austin, I'm like, I need to do mural here. I need to do it. I was itching for one. And so I was driving around the city with my friend, and we're like, this is it. We found it on South Congress Avenue, which is the busiest walking
Mm-hmm.
street in Austin. So you have all the shops and restaurants on this one street. It was 70-foot long by
Jeez, that's
12
big.
foot high. And we're like, why hasn't anyone painted anything here? We're like, this is the prime location because it was ground level. There's thousands of people who walk by every single day. And so here I am on Google, and I'm trying to find the owner of this building. And I ended up finding this article that was written in some real estate paper somewhere, and it was talking about this development group, and it was years ago when they first came up with this concept, and they got all the permitting for it, and they had the plans, and they showed it. And so here I am looking for this group, and I ended up finding the owner of the building. And then I was hunting to see if I knew anyone that knew this person. And I ended up finding a friend who was friends with the owner, and I was like, okay, here's my shot. And I created a proposal, and I sent it off to my friend, was like, can you send this over? And he was like, great, sure, no problem. And within 15 minutes, no lie, 15 minutes after sending that proposal off, he responded like, let's do the mural. And so that's when I had the green light, and that was the very first mural that I did in Austin. And ever since, it's been graffitied numerous times, which is part of the process. But what's so interesting about the second time that it's been graffitied, because I fixed it the first, is that I created this video on my Instagram, and it was a reaction video. I just had the phone here, and as I was walking up to the mural, and it was about my feelings that I disdain at the moment, because I'd say maybe I was a little heated in
I
my
didn't think you were. I thought you
video
were
about
very
how I
calm.
felt. Oh, thank you. So, because like there were moments I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have said that, but then I posted it anyways. And what happened was, this is the testament of the power of social media, is that video reached the taggers, the people who graffitied the mural. And next thing you know, I'm looking at my video, and I have 150 comments. And out of those 150 comments, 50 of them were just hate comments, and they were threats. And I had seen that my video was shared amongst the entire graffiti community in Austin. And they did not like the video because I had mentioned in my video that the tags that were done on my mural, that I didn't think it was good art.
It wasn't.
And thank you. I love street art. I love graffiti.
That was not graffiti.
Not
no,
my favorite. Yeah.
because
And so I ended up getting some hate comments saying that this guy, I'm not going to say his name, but this particular person is a really big graffiti artist in Austin. And he has his own tag, and they were arguing. And so, like, this is something I learned about graffiti and how and like why people do it and the relationship they have with other muralists. And yeah, I learned a lot, which is because like from the comments that they posted, they said that muralists are just a bunch of gentrification art, and that graffiti is sort of the original art that's being pushed out, and that their argument is that they think graffiti is actually adding to the community versus how we see it as vandalism. So to do it over a mural is fine because they're doing the community justice. And
I have so many words.
And so many words. And I mean, I'd love to know your opinion on this. And so they said, you know, if I try to fix it, that they would graffiti over it even more. So there was a threat there, and I was like, okay. So I then had to go back to the drawing board. I'm like, I can't just fix it anymore. I have to put over a coating and take this a little more seriously if I want it to last. Or the other question I had was, do I just leave it and not touch it? And, you know, let them go to town on the graffiti on the mural. I was like, whatever. And I decided that I'm going to fix it. And instead of fixing what was already there and restoring it, I'm actually going to do something that's evolved, and I'm going to sort of add these like geometric shapes from my works and do that over the top. I think I'm going to create an ode to the eclipse that happened here because it was so powerful and so beautiful. And I have to put on an anti-graffiti coating, which is new to me because I've never used it. And yeah, I'm going to do that next week.
Oh, that's crazy. So, okay, my thoughts. Because I have friends who do murals here in Dallas. I've even been to the spot here in Dallas where you learn to go and graffiti. Like there's a specific area where, you know, you can take out your spray cans and go and practice like things and whatnot. There is a level of respect amongst artists. If someone has done a work and it is beautiful and whatnot, so even like the murals that I've done, then another artist respects it. No questions asked. End of discussion. So I don't know what type of level graffiti people are down there, but to me, like for those people, if they truly are artists, if they see themselves as artists, then they would find somewhere else to do their art.
Totally. Those are my thoughts exactly. Like it's just this there's these underlying ethics that come with, I think, public art. And if that is your art form, then you don't have to go over someone else's hard-earned work that they've created for hours and hours of work that they've used or so hours and hours of work that they've had to do to create this mural. That said, it's, you know, I think the community of art of taggers and graffiti artists, like there's a name for them and I forget the name of what they call themselves, but I think the community itself is a little toxic as well. And like there is this hierarchy that kind of happens. I didn't see any women in the group. It was all guys, and like I could tell that it was like this play on ego as well with name and like displaying their name as big and as many places as possible, which is totally ego fed, right? And you know, it's this like punk rock. I think it's derivative of the punk rock community as well a little bit, which is like, let's rebel against society, and we don't give a fuck. Which I love in that in so many ways. It's just respect other people's work. That's it. And I also this made me realize that there should be more collaboration between painters and graffiti artists. There should be. And like I think it would help merge the two communities together in a way that they would respect each other. There's this article that I actually read, I think it was on Artsy, and I mean, oh God, I don't even remember the name of the artist, but it was a painting that was bought for hundreds of millions of dollars. And they discovered that on the back of the painting, and it's like a beautiful impressionist painting. This article just came out yesterday. It's a beautiful impressionist painting, and on the back of the painting is full graffiti. And so that artist collaborated with a graffiti artist to go on the back of his work. And so when it was stretched, this graffiti was on the back. And they just discovered it when they were unraveling it, because this painting is centuries. It's like multiple centuries old. And that's something that they've never seen before. And I was like, okay, respect. I think that's actually super cool to be like, hey, I want you to have your imprint on this work as well, because you deserve this respect. So, yeah, there's just something that can be done there. I don't know what, but there's something.
I think, yeah, definitely a conversation to be had. And, you know, I can definitely put you in contact with a couple of friends up here that I have who do murals, who also, you know, that kind of stuff, and see if they know people down in Austin, and be like, you know, what should I do, or how can we collaborate and have a conversation about this? Because I think it is important, because there are so many murals, and I have a friend who only paints murals.
Yeah, that's all they do.
Their livelihood, you know. And if someone were to come and tag it, I'm sure that that person would feel horrible, you know. And it's just like, because they got paid good money to do it, one, but then it also has all these layers of intricacies and hard work and planning that went into it.
Yeah, I'd be curious if you talk to another muralist, like what their point of view is on you know, this whole community and what they do about it, whether they're close with them or whether there's some sort of, I don't know, I shouldn't say rivalry, but you know what I mean. I'd be very curious, because murals is something I do secondary. It's all kind of new to me, and how to approach it. But you know, murals are so powerful. I think they are like the most powerful form of art, because you are engaging with the public.
100%. And especially in where like people walk on a regular basis, not only is it, you know, sad to say, a social media moment, but you get people to engage with it for reasons. You stop people in their tracks, and they actually stop and look at it, you know, as if they were walking in a gallery or a museum.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's really, really cool. I love a good mural. And I feel like Texas in general, Austin, Dallas, they really embrace murals around the city, which is
popping up murals all the time, all over the city, regular basis.
So cool.
So you have a show, something coming up in June. It's still top secret. You can't talk about it yet.
Yeah, can't talk about it except for the name, which is We're Meant to Blossom.
We are meant to blossom. All right, people. So we are meant to blossom. Will be coming soon.
Will be coming beginning of June. And for anyone that's interested in attending, if you are local in Austin,
and that, my friends, wraps up another colorful episode of The Artist Stoop. A huge thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their art and stories. If you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on the next Stoop chat. And don't forget to spread the love. Share your favorite episodes with fellow art enthusiasts, and let's build this community together. Connect with us on social media at Jade Studio and Jillian Zepeda Art for behind-the-scene peeks, artist spotlights, and a sneak peek at my own art. Until next time, stay inspired, stay curious, and keep that creative fire burning. This is Jillian Zepeda signing off from the Artist Stoop. And remember, the world is your canvas, so paint it vividly.